Hey, it's Liam, and in this brief tutorial I'm going to be introducing you to a program called the Mandelbulb3D. So Mandelbulb3D is a 3D fractal rendering software. I've been using it off and on for about a year. It's a cool way to kill time. You can see some beautiful images, create some interesting animations, or just have fun exploring. So in this tutorial I'm just going to be teaching you how to install it and how to work the program at a basic level. To start off, you're going to want to go to the internet here. Go to the website Mandelbulb.com. Once you're here, you're going to want to click on Software, Mandelbulb3D. Then click here. So click here to download the latest version and then extract that folder to your computer. Once you have it, open it up and click on Mandelbulb3D. Okay, so once you're here, you'll be greeted by two windows. The first window is your main editor and the second window is your formulas tab. In order to get started, click Calculate 3D. So once you have the shape calculated, you can edit the aspect ratio and the resolution using this. Say if you wanted to view this in 1920 by 1080, you can set the aspect ratio to 916 by 9 and the resolution 1920 by 1080. Calculate 3D. This will slow down the rendering time, and depending on what you're trying to render, it can take anywhere from 5 seconds to a couple hours. It's also dependent on your computer, of course. But anyways, to start exploring this fractal, you can click on the Navigator tab. This will open up this little sub window where you can start to move around this fractal. You can use either one of these keys to advance, forward, backwards, roll around, look left, right. But I find the easiest way is just to click on the screen. Clicking on the screen puts your camera into free cam mode, where you can look around using your mouse and you can scroll in and out with the scroll wheel. So let's zoom into this little area, and let's say we want to view this at a higher resolution in our main editor. You can click View to Main. So this Navigator tab, it kind of scales everything down. The lighting isn't quite correct and the calculation is pretty rough, so you're not really going to want to use this to view your final images. You're always going to want to send view to main. But anyways, once you have that, it'll send the parameters within this tab to the main editor. The only parameters of the formula we've changed currently is the position and rotation. If you ever want to reset these, you can click Reset 0 and it'll reset you back to this point where you are here. But anyways, calculate 3D. And here we are. This is what we're viewing in our Navigator. For now, I'm going to turn down the scale a little bit because it'll take a little bit longer to render these images. So now, once you've done that, you can start editing the formulas to generate new shapes. There's 3 different ways to combine the formulas. The first way is to alternate them, second interpolate, and decombinate. In this tutorial, I'm only going to cover the alternate as it's the simplest and it requires the least amount of explanation. So what alternating does is it essentially runs every single point within the fractal through each equation within a series. You can add formulas and you can have up to 6 by clicking on these tabs. For now we just have this basic integer power. I don't know why they call it this, but this is just the Mandelbulb. Now let's say we want to reset our image. In order to generate a new shape, I'll reset it, calculate 3D. Alright, so now let's start adding formulas. So there's 3 different types of formulas. There's escape time formulas, there's escape time transformation formulas, and distance iterated function formulas. You can only combine certain types of formulas with other types. Escape time formulas, they can only combine with ADS formulas here, which are transformation escape time formulas, and DIFS formulas and DIF transformation formulas cannot combine with any of these kind. The way this program combines these formulas and determines whether a point is within the set is by these 2 conditions, max iterations and R bailout. Max iterations is how many times a point can be run through an equation before it determines that it does not need to do that anymore. And R bailout is the distance of that point from the origin that it'll reach within the iterations before the program determines that that point is reaching infinity and is thus not part of the set. So to start off, I will add a transformation formula to this Mandelbulb. we can go and find, let's say, logarithm of x. I believe this formula just takes the logarithm of the x values. If you ever want to see what these formulas are doing, you can click here and you can actually see what it does to each parameter of the equation. So calculate 3D, and then there we go, we have a new shape. And now we can start editing the parameters in order to augment this fractal. One of the strongest way, or the biggest change you can do to the edits, is by changing the amount of times the formula is going to iterate in series using this value right here, iteration count. Essentially what this does is if you set this to any number, let's say above 1, it'll iterate this formula, the integer power, also in the Mandelbulb, 3 times before it'll send all the data and all the points towards this formula, or then it'll iterate those points 1 time and then back and so forth until it reaches 60 or that R bailout is reached. So the best way to view the changes to the formula is to go to the navigator actually. Click parameter right here. It's going to set the parameters from the main editor to the navigator tab. Here we go, we have the shape. And now in here, I already have it open here, but if you click on this formula tab by this arrow right here, it'll open up the formula parameters. You can change which formula you're editing by clicking this arrow up or down all the way through your 6 slots. And then in here you can edit some of the equation, or some of the parameters within the equations. So for now I'm going to set this back down to 1 iteration to get the shape we had before, and then I'm going to start editing the integer power that it uses to calculate the shape. As you can see, the shape starts to transform the more I change this, and essentially I just kind of try to look around for interesting things I can find by doing this. FYI, if you ever want to change the height of this tab, you can change the navigator size right here, say like 170%, 180, so it fills more on my screen. If I want to increase the iterations like this, I can increase this iteration count by clicking on this right here. As you can see, it's almost starting to form some kind of weird square, but we'll put this back down to 2. So it's forming these interesting little pyramids. And so yeah, you can just edit these parameters to however you like, find whatever interesting thing. You can change the parameters, and then you can start to zoom in once you find something cool. For now, I'm just going to zoom into this little centerpiece here, and then I'm going to view this main. Once I calculate 3D, here it is in the main editor. Alright, so then yeah, let's say once you have your image that you want to modify, let's say the lighting or some of the post-processing, you can do that with this tab in order to generate, let's say, a final image you want to save. First, look over the lighting. So the most important thing to edit within your lighting is your object lighting. There's a diffusion and then a spectral gloss mode right here. The diffusion is generally going to be your color shape. Like as you can see, the blues and greens, they all map onto this little bar. You can adjust the sliders. They come by default glued. But let's say you wanted to make your own custom lighting. For here, I'm going to go with, let's say, a red and a white. I think that'd look interesting. I'll click off glue sliders, and I'll kind of locate the positions that determine the light for like the majority of the fractal. I'll set this green here, and then let's say this blue here, and see the way it changes. Okay, so it seems like the middle is about this position. So let's say I want this middle to be colored in, let's say, darker purple red, and then I'll set the reflections. This second little bar is the reflections that you would see in, let's say, real life, just kind of like ambient reflections. I'll set that to white so that I'm not getting much interference. Alright, and there we go. Now I got kind of a red background. If I want to get this middle part, kind of these spikes, to be whatever color, as I can see here, it's kind of light mapping off this little area. So I'll set this to white, see what that looks like. And bang, okay, so the fractal's been edited. Alright, so once you're happy with your lighting, you can also change things such as the post-processing. By default, it has ambient shadow calculations. You can disable them or enable them right here. but there's also different options such as depth of field, hard shadows, normals on Z buffers, and then you can also recalculate a section. Let's say you want to have a quarter of this have ambient lighting and a quarter of it not. I won't get too much into it, but the basic way to work it is pretty much click here and then calculate now. And it'll recalculate your image with hard shadows. As you can see, it's kind of added some depth to the image. If I want to add some depth of field, I can just do it automatically. The program will kind of determine like the close distance and the far distance, and it'll add a little bit of blurring in the distance. But you're also able to select which points you want to blur, or which points are close and which points are far, by clicking get Z1, click on the image, get Z2, and then this will be your close point, and then it'll kind of blur it in a gradient between those points. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of not very good at doing it automatically, so I'm going to say my far point is over here, and my close point is right here. Then recalculate that, and it should calculate within a gradient. Alright, so that concludes this brief introduction into Mandelbulb3D. Of course, there's a lot more to this program. It would take a lot longer to explain how this works, and there's a lot even I don't know about this program. But if you're ever curious and want to learn more, you can always go to YouTube or to the wiki and read more about it. Thanks for watching.